Hey everybody, Ben here from DMC Films and Cinderblock Studios, and some artists talk a lot about color shift. But what is color shift, why should you care, and why have I never talked about this before? That and more coming up. So what is color shift anyway? Color shift is not a change in the color or hue of the paint as it dries, but more so the value of it. Painting media in general will either have a lot of color shift or next to none, and it really depends on the color of the paint, the quality of the paint, as well as just which painting medium you're using. Acrylics in general are going to color shift much darker than they appear on your palette, so when you paint wet it's going to have one value, and when your paint dries it's going to look a little bit darker. Oils, on the other hand, which is why they're most preferred by a lot of artists, is that there's little to no color shift really at all. And then there's the two weird ones when it comes to color shift: watercolors and gouache. Watercolors in most circumstances are going to dry lighter than they appear on the palette. Now this is a little different than what you might expect out of acrylics, but a lot of this also has to do with the color of the support you're working on. In this case you're working most of the time on white paper, so that white is going to show through because watercolors are a transparent medium. Gouache, however, is probably the one that'll really throw you off. In gouache, a lighter color will dry darker, and a darker color will dry lighter. That can be a little tricky at first. That's why for gouache, experimentation and experience really come into play there. For more on the properties of gouache as well as watercolor, be sure to check out my Everything You Need to Know About Watercolors video remake, which will be out this Friday. So that's what color shift is, and that's why it's important, but why haven't I talked about this before? Well, one, my primary medium is acrylics. And you think, okay, they dry darker. Well, depending on the quality, it does vary a little bit. A lot of cheaper paints will have a really strong color shift, but I use artists and professional grade acrylics, which that color shift is really minimal. And also, depending on the brand and depending on the quality, it's something that not everyone's going to notice. I had already been painting for about 8 years when I first heard the term color shift. And when I thought about it, I'm like, I guess they kind of do dry darker, but I don't really notice it. Color shift in general is a really minimal change in value from wet paint to dry paint. So it's definitely not one of those factors that should be considered when you're buying your paint, because it's not something that is that devastating to a piece. So whether or not the paint you use actually color shifts, depending on who you are, can be a make or break deal, but I feel that it's just not something you have to really consider. If you learned what color shift is in this video, or you just found something new about it that you didn't know before, go ahead and hit the like button. Remember to subscribe, and this has been from DMC Films and Cinderblock Studios. See you guys next time.